A lot of brilliant speakers here today, and it's been a long day, so I will try to live up to the standard that we've set and also bring a lot of energy into my presentation here, so I hope you don't fall asleep. I have the opportunity here to speak about a journey that we've been on, a dream coming into place actually, creating a local supply chain for a renewable material, making it affordable with excellent performance. So I'm here to speak about Ecolution and how we started off, what is it now, 11 years ago. It actually started off a few years earlier than that, when my childhood friend, a guy that was studying economics and marketing in California, he called me and he said, I've started reading about hemp, and we can actually use hemp as a building material. And at the time, this was back in 2007, I was an engineering student, 2 years into my engineering studies, and having a friend that I've known since being 6 or 7 years old, studying economics in California, calling me and saying, you can use hemp as a building material. What do you guys expect my first thought was? Yeah. So I was kind of negligent in the beginning and always looking for the problems within the material itself. It took me a few years to realize that it was a viable option. And by convincing myself, looking myself in the mirror and saying that this is actual something that we can build with long term without losing the thermal performance that we want, this is something I would like to be a part of, something that I would like to develop and bring forth as an alternative in the construction sector. In the meantime, and now this journey took me 5 years, so that wasn't just overnight. In the meantime, I graduated as an engineer. I was out as a structural engineer working with conventional materials and structures, and I noticed that the sustainability aspect was linked to energy performance. So back in 2010, we were talking about passive house standards. We're using more and more insulation materials, plastic materials, and so on to control the energy loss through the structures. Completely forgetting the discussion about the origin of the materials, what was the effect causing the environment, and how was the material affecting us living in those structures or working there. So these were really incentives for me to get started. And now I'll get started with my presentation. So Ecolution. Just to give you an overview, sorry, the presentation is in Swedish. I didn't have time to convert it, but some slides are in English. So for those of you who don't understand, just raise your hand. So just to give you an overview of what we are or what we do, our main product is our hemp fiber insulation. Me, myself, being an engineer and working within the construction field for so many years, we have a technical support center, so we can actually go into projects and support the designers or be ourselves a structural engineer within the project. And this has helped some of the projects we've been part of because there's a huge knowledge gap out there. There are not a lot of people, or the knowledge is actually spreading now, but there's still a huge demand to learn more about bio-based materials. Our insulation is always put in a structure. So we have developed, you can see in our webpage, some standardized construction examples of where you can see our insulation into typical building systems for inner walls, exterior walls, roof structures, and so on, just to help leapfrog the construction phase or the design phase. Otherwise, we have to invent the wheel in every project that we go into, and that's really time-consuming and frustrating for a lot of projects. And also, we can take it one step further. Together with our prefab suppliers, we can actually supply projects with ready-made structures and reduce the erection time on site. And this also gives us an opportunity to take ownership of the structure from the idea phase all the way to the delivery phase. And the last thing is that we're trying to make our material available throughout Sweden. So we are in the bigger warehouses such as Optimera, Derum, and soon even in Beijer Bygg. And now we are even going internationally into Denmark and Germany soon. So I mentioned the founding team, or one of my founding members, Remy, who's my childhood friend, and he's our CEO today. He has a marketing and economic background, but more importantly, he comes from 2 generations of entrepreneurs. Firstly, his grandfather was an entrepreneur in Poland, using bombed materials in Warsaw, taking bricks and using them to rebuild new houses. And then his father came to Sweden and started a company that worked within recycling. So he had that into his veins, and that has really helped us navigate the entrepreneurship landscape, which is not really easy when you're handling the construction sector. I myself come from, I'm an engineer, come from the engineering field, as I mentioned before, and have the responsibilities when it comes to the technical development and sustainability aspect of our products, and also helping the entire engineering and architectural field apply our products in the right manner. And lastly, we have Henrik that comes from a farming family and knows the farming side, and is also an engineer within production and production management. So a strong trio of competences, but we also, more importantly, work culturally because we've been tied together for the last 11 years. And now recently wow, only 5 minutes left, so let's jump a little bit. Recently, we received a big grant from the Naturvårdsverket, the Environmental Protection Agency in Sweden, to help us build our own production facility in Staffanstorp. And the way we do it is with locally sourced hemp. We grow everything here in Skåne in a radius of 50 to 60 kilometers from our production plant in Staffanstorp. So truly locally sourced with our own farmers. This helps us to determine exactly which quality we work with when it comes to hemp. We help educate the farmers so they use the best practices when they're growing the hemp, so we can have high yields with great quality coming into us. And then, no, I wanted to show this slide first. It's coming in different order. Here we are. This is the hemp plant, and it's incredible because it grows in 120 days. In that time, it binds double its weight in carbon. So up about 20 tons of CO2 per hectare, which is quite incredible. Leapfrogging here. And this is the growth cycle of hemp. We put it in the ground in April, and then it starts showing up in May, and then in June it's roughly 1 meter high. And then by the end of July, it's actually around 2.5 to 3 meters. And when we go into harvest, it's around 4 meters high. I'm trying to show the next slide here. We can see a video. Here we are. So I love to see this part because when we started off working with hemp, we started off with the ones that were growing hemp for the food sector, and we would take their waste streams and use the fibers that they would have. But going into large-scale production now, we had to focus on developing the right type of fibers, so that's why we have our own plant. And we can also see that the agri-sector was underinvested because hemp is a very strong plant and you need the right harvesting methods in order to do it large scale. So we invested in this harvester that you see here during this year actually, and it enabled us to harvest I think 10 times faster than we were doing before. This year we're growing 640 hectares and we will be growing around 3,000 hectares within 3 years. At least that's the ambition. See here. In our production plant that we're building now in Staffanstorp, and we'll be visiting later on, we have the ability to bind 70,000 tons of CO2 per year. That corresponds to 1.5% of the entire carbon footprint of the construction sector in Sweden. So it's a remarkable amount. But also, when you're building a production plant from scratch, you have the ability or the opportunity to determine what factors do we want to weave into it. So one thing that was really important for us was that we worked with sustainable crop that was renewable. Secondly, that we didn't want to have any waste. So when we're going into and I will talk about this later on even, but all of the so-called waste streams that we have in our production plants is reused in some way. So nothing goes to waste. We don't throw away anything. Not even the hemp bales are pressed, and then we used a wire, thank you. And even that wire is recycled and sent back to the supplier. So truly zero waste. And even our insulation, for example, it's introduced into a circular bioeconomy, because when we produce it, we have cuttings that we cut off in order to create the perfect shape. Even the cuttings are recycled back into the beginning of the line, so we can introduce it with the new material coming in. All the build waste that we have on site can be sent back to us, where we tear it up into fibers and mix it in with the new materials that we are creating. And also, when the construction reaches end of life, you have the opportunity to send the material back to us, so we can tear it up and reuse it. So a circular economy. Now this is a picture of what the machines look like. It's not our plant, but a similar one. And it's highly automated. And that was one of the prerequisites when we started with the project, because we're in Sweden and we want to keep labor quite low and the production capacity quite high. So you can see here to the left is where we introduced the hemp fiber bale, and then it goes in through the, and that's the only manual stage that we have when we lift up the hemp bale. And in the other end we have the hemp fibers coming out. Now we come into the hemp fiber insulation as a production material, or as a building material. So it's really important that we have all of the certifications in place in order for the commercial sector to be, in order to for them to apply it and understand the product. One issue that we have, and one challenge that we have, is that all of the assessment methods that we have for insulation materials or building products are adjusted for or developed by the current materials or the conventional materials. So it's a little bit exaggerated, but a little bit judging a bird's from its ability to swim. So we have to be open to that. The bio-based materials, they work differently, but they are high performing. And there are several examples of this. And I would love to deep dive into that a little bit later. You can catch me after the presentation here. But just showcasing here all of the tests that we've made and the platforms that we're on. And I also mentioned that the circularity aspect of it. Here are some of the technical properties. We have lambda at 0.04. But also we have a very high thermal capacity at 2,300 now, which is really important for the thermal performance. We have a very low carbon footprint of 0.29 kilograms per kilogram material, and this will be reduced by approximately 50% when we start our production facility in Staffanstorp. So already now we have a very low footprint, and we'll be able to reduce it even more. And where can we apply our insulation? Well, we have some typical structures on our website that you can see, but here you can see an overview of where in the house you can build it. So essentially everywhere above ground, I would recommend. And then moving a little bit forward, you can see some of the projects that we have been in. Let me see here. This is something that we're really proud of when we reach 120 minutes fire resistance in an inner wall system. Here's an example where we worked together with AMF Fastigheter. Here's in Lund, Chemie Centrum, where they applied the inner walls. It's an upcoming project that we have in the Gothenburg region. This is a conference center being built in Småland, and so on. So my point that I'm trying to make here is that we're not in a stage where we're in an early stage and trying to understand the challenges that we have in the construction sector. We actually surpassed that. We have identified that we have the problems. Right now we're in a commercial stage. And we would like all of you here to join us on our journey when we're leading the way to use more sound materials, more materials that are bio-based, that are highly, performing highly, and are affordable. I think I'll end there.
Yeah, thank you. Great. And just save your questions for the study visit. It's a great place to ask questions, I think.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
You can feel the materials and you can talk regarding this dust collection and everything.
Sure. How many are joining into Staffanstorp later on? That's almost everyone. That's great. I won't be in the bus because I have to drive ahead and prepare, but I'll see you out there.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So, now we've gone from the Nordic level. First, Nordic actors showing up, telling their experiences and knowledge, and then we went for a European outreach, and then now the local initiatives have been presented, and now we will visit two of them. So I think that's going to be great. To sum up the day, this slowing down the great acceleration is, I think, is is one important part here. And we have lived in a time where material and energy was scarce, and now we're gonna treat it as it's scarce again, I believe. So, and then we have some clues of what kind of materials we can use. But we learned a lot during this period as well, with digitalization and comfort and architectural expression and everything. So I think that's important. If you can combine the old and the new knowledge, I think that's a good breaking point. And also this using less virgin materials, that's like a focus thing. So even like the clay plaster, for instance, the big problem is that it's often it's virgin sand, for instance, and that's a problem. So can we work on that? There's products now out using coffee grind and hazelnut shells. Yeah. So think about what kind of a ballast you use as well, not just a binder.
Great.
Yep.
I think from my side, I just want to thank you all for joining, and I'll see many of you on the bus. And what we'll do now is that we'll meet down in the courtyard, and we'll be walking together to where the bus picks us up. So in what's the time now? In 10 minutes, we'll be meeting down there, and we'll start walking to make it for the bus. So see you down there, and.